Hello, welcome back to the channel. So this time we're just going to try and refine a few things as we go through this build. This was a kind of test build for me for trying out some new techniques, a little bit of chipping, trying to refine the weathering process as well a little bit. So thought this was a perfect little kit for that. So this is a very late war subject. I call it the Borgward, which is what the kind of vehicle is. Here you can just see some super glue filling on some ejector pin marks on the inside. So this is a reboxing by Das Werk of a kit by Amusing Hobby. And so it's a Borgward chassis with a... It's probably got a name, but it's a rocket propelled, not rocket propelled. It's a whole load of Panzershreks put together. I think there's 8 tubes in total, or maybe it's 6. And this thing's obviously a fast-tracked, I don't know, anti-tank, throw all you can at it, last-ditch weapon. Again, just a point here, we've got a warped lower section to the chassis that I'm showing you there, which all comes true very easily. You just glue the back and bring the front up, just finishing off these ejector pin marks. So yes, I don't know a lot about this vehicle. I thought it was a what if vehicle, but it wasn't. It did have an outing, Battle of Berlin, very last ditch vehicle. I mean, I don't know what it must have been like to have to sit in one of these and drive it to the Russian tank columns. If you flew around the corner and came up against a JS2, I mean, well, turn around again, I think I would. No real armour, one hit from anything and it's over, I think. Now, I don't know how they performed, but there were certainly a few in Berlin, and there were certainly a few wreckages at the end of Berlin. So there's pictures of them going into Berlin and lining up before, and there's also pictures afterwards as well. So if you search it, what it says on the box, the Panzerjäger Wanze, you will see pictures of it. So we've got a little bit of an interior here. This area you can see there is kind of a screen with a access point between the driver and the weapon operator, and just sort of pointing out here how you need to just get things lined up. Now, this Amusing Hobby kit, I've never had this before. I'm going to refer to it as that, even though it's a Das Werk boxing. Although I don't know if it's actually got a release by Amusing Hobby. It may have done. It may be a Das Werk thing that they've sort of commissioned. Either way, it's produced by Amusing Hobby. And I was quite impressed at some of just a few little areas that were just a bit ingenious. Not like many manufacturers I've had before. And obviously this warped belly plate is not ideal, but as I say, it does pull all pull together quite quickly. But the way it all clips together, I found that very impressive. When we get onto the running gear as well, the swing arms just slot right in, and they stay there as well, and they are all really quite level. Just little things like that. It was very impressive. And it makes for a nice kit. So I wanted to put a firewall in here, because I could see that it was just going to... you might be able to see through it. I think in the end, I'm not sure you could have seen up through there, but I've done it anyway. Just cut that out of a bit of plasticard. I think it's 1mm thickness plasticard. And put it in there, cut some notches out on the side so it all sits in nicely. And then we've got a few more of the interior parts. We've got the chair and the instrument panel. I would have liked a decal for the instrument panel, I'll be honest. I always do look for that. I don't know why that can't just be included with kits, because it's not the easiest thing to tackle and it can be a bit off-putting. So painting up the chair, once everything's... this is interior as well. The whole lot's had LP55. Which is the dark yellow 2 from Tamiya in the Lacquer range. I've painted the areas that were the seats, so just showing the cushion, and this is the process, just using some Citadel colours. Got Bugman's Glow and Tuscarora fur, and all I've really done is just kind of stippled it on and then wiped it back and brushed it on and wiped it back, just trying to let it show through. And then we've got some extremely old flesh wash. Maybe you can let me know in the comments what the new version of that is, because that is long gone. That is Doomball Brown, that one that we've just seen there. And I'm just kind of building up the layers. As you can see, this is showing you with the Doomball Brown that I'm just going around the edges now and trying to sweep back in to try and give the lighter patches in the middle as it would wear, is my assumption. If you look at worn leather, I mean, again, why I'm doing worn leather for a vehicle that was probably only in existence for about 6 weeks, I don't know, but I got carried away with it and I thought we'll go with it. And that's the part of this build, that's what I'm saying. I've changed my kind of way of doing things. I've had a little break in the background, you've probably seen by not seeing a lot of videos going up. And as I've come back, I've tried to not worry about the final result and try and experiment my way to it. See, I didn't know what I was doing with this seat. I've never done this before, never seen it. This isn't following a tutorial. I'm just kind of throwing it in there. Here you can see I've got a few bit of thinners on my brush. I'm just kind of wiping away the base to try and get some of that pink to show through. I'm just sort of getting something in my mind that I want it to look like and see if I can stumble my way to it. And I do that quite often and I do enjoy it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I'm not very precious with my models. Certain ones I will be. But this one, for instance, is just something nice. It was, I don't know, £16 in the UK. I thought, well, this got me back into it. And I'm very pleased with it. Just looking at it now in the cabinet. So what I'm trying to say is you just have fun. You don't get hung up on how it should look, what it should be. We can always buy another model and do it a bit better next time. Obviously, if that's your thing to put everything you can into the build, then that's absolutely great as well. But some people, it can be counterproductive doing it like that. So I'm just trying to show you the other side, that we can just have fun. And as you can see, carrying on here, just layering up the colours. It's basically browns of all varying sorts in acrylic. Now, you could do this with oils, you could do it with all sorts of things. And, I would encourage you to just have a go. And now, for the continuity more than anything, I'm continuing on with the Citadel range. This is Snakebite Leather Contrast colour. Now, I'm not so sure this did what I wanted it to do, and if I'd sat and thought about it, it's done exactly what it was going to do, which is it's a wash, really, and it's filtered it, which means it's made it quite dark. Now, I don't think that's a problem, but it's changed the tone of the piece, if that makes sense. So, that then moves me into a different area. I'm just trying to follow that. But yeah, I mean, I'm reasonably happy with the result. It's coming up shortly. I know it's been a bit of time on this chair, but I think it's important to show the process and show you what I'm doing. I'm doing a bit of stippling here now to try and build a bit of texture, because you always seem to see texture in these type of old leather seats, I think. So whether you'd see it in the scale is a different matter, but it makes for a good model. And I think we're getting somewhere near it now. It's starting to look the part, and a little bit more faffing on my part off camera gets us to where we want to be. And as I say, I'm reasonably pleased. Now, this chair is kind of the centerpiece of the interior. You can't really see much else. You can't see a lot of the chair, but you can see the sort of seat cushion on top, which is for the gunner, I suppose. So I'm very happy with that. And here we go, now carrying on with the interior, basic stuff, just getting the oils out. We've got raw umber and burnt umber, and we're just going on in there and trying to get the oil into, we've got that kind of cross hatching going on here, so we're just trying to get the oils into the recesses, and then we'll wipe it off. And again, going back over the chair again, just to give it a wash, just to tone it down a little bit and bring it in. And there you can see, we have to over accentuate things for an interior when you've only got one small hatch to see through. Now, if this was an open vehicle, I would have maybe refined that a bit more. But I'm trying to get quite a high contrast. You can see the instrument panel there as well. Unbelievably, there is a very clear image of a Borgward instrument panel on the internet, and it does look like they're black dials with white numbers, and I forget what it would be called. Not arrows, you know, the the thing that goes up and down to tell you where you are. So I think that was as close as I could get. A little bit of dry brushing, again just using Citadel acrylics. Quite like the Citadel acrylics for brush painting, got to be honest. I'm getting more and more into them, but you've got to I think you've got to learn the process a little bit, so it's worth trying them on different things. So bringing the top half of the hull to the lower part of the hull, and now we're putting in the torsion bars, or swing arms, I suppose. We've got some smoke discharges at the front. I believe they are. I don't think they're grenade launchers. They look like smoke discharges. Now, you could go a long way with this. I started thinking about adding some wire and this, that, and everything else, and it wasn't what this build was about, so it stayed off. Just showing you there that I've got the idler swing arm, left it loose so that we can move it for final assembly and tighten up the track run. The one not so good point of this kit, which was actually a surprise, is these wheels. There is no real firm locating point. You just got to kind of mash them together and line them up. So all I did was kept applying the extra fin and push them down and hold them together. I was very surprised at that. There's no real locating pins or anything. Sprocket, again, bit ingenious on how they've gone and built this up. Really nice. You got this kind of thin blade type part that I'm just putting on there, which is one of the guides inside the run of teeth. And you've got the other part that goes out on the other side to make it up. And there you can see that you've got all of that detail inside the run of the two teeth runs of the sprocket. Now we're on to the tracks. So we've got link and length tracks, which is, I think, perfect for this scale. And using the old method of a bit of double-sided sticky tape on an old metal ruler, just a low tack. This is, you need to make it low tack, hence why it's all got debris all over it. I don't mind that, because if it's too sticky, when you go to push the track off, it all just stays on there and breaks. So it's just enough, you touch it with your finger and you wouldn't lift up the ruler, it would just kind of be tacky. So now using my clean ruler, you push it off, and there you go. Easy. Tracks made easy. Who knew? Now we've got the long run, which is the lower part, goes below the road wheels. And then we've got what I'm gluing on now on the right hand side is all of the interlinking tracks. So we go up and over the idler, making sure our track direction is correct. And you just need to bring it back so that when you go round the idler, that section there lands on the last road wheel. And then in that case, you can get the correct sag. And then you get the next long section, which is obviously the length part of it. And we glue that on. And it can be fiddly. You've got to get the tackiness correct of the glue. You've got to get the glue just set enough that you've got enough play that you can sort it out. And then we go on round the sprocket. I know I haven't filmed it there, but we'll just continue that on through. Test fit there of the fenders as well. We're moving rather fast, which just slot in. And here you go. This is the Panzershrek unit. So this is 6. Now there's a join there, if you can see, between that bar, the upright bar, if that makes sense. And we've also got the shield at the front, which has got the pre-cut holes. And now I use that to line it up as I glued them together at the upper and lower run of the tubes, if you like. And then I've used some plasticard there just to make a kind of girder shape, which was lost in sanding and gluing. There was a seam line and it shouldn't be. It should be like the one in front of it. So I've just tried to continue that through and it made it nice and clean. And there you go. Now you're starting to see the shape of things and everything can be painted. So it's back with LP55, which I'm enjoying. I found the coverage a little bit tricky, got to be honest. But I'm going to look into that as I go forward. Using wheel mask, perfect size again. There's always one. If you've got enough holes, there's always one that fits. And this is spraying it rubber black and then using the wheel mask to mask that rubber black. And we just give it a blast with the old Dunkelgelb. And there you go. Now you can leave the black and use a bit of shading internally, or you can spray all around it. So I like to leave a little bit of shading in there. Bit of a, sort of a arcing back a little bit to a Tony Greenland way of doing stuff. We just sort of sprayed it a dark colour, the running gear. It's similar sort of thing. And there you can see how effective that is. I mean, you just would struggle to do that with brush. So once the whole tank was sprayed with the Dunkelgelb, I've gone over it with MRP olive green. Now, MRP is a fantastic lacquer paint. And I think it's something that doesn't get used enough in armour. It gets used in aircraft, and then we've got the red-brown now that we're going to go on with. Now, I did struggle with the filming of this, so you just have to bear with me that there's only a small section. But I was struggling to get the paint flowing, and it's, again, I had to clean the airbrush. But as you can see, the tightness you can get with this MRP paint out of the bottle, I struggle to do it with anything else, I've got to be honest. And this is all freehand camo, and it's quite a, a pattern that I've got to do. So this MRP stuff's worth looking at, but you do need a respirator and you do need a spray booth. I wouldn't be spraying lacquers unless you had both of those things sorted, and you can get a good draw out of the room, draw of air taking it out the room. And here you can go. So I'm just loosely using the painting guide and just kind of going on round and getting the brown on, merging it into the green. And once that's sprayed up, it's a bit strong. So using the old method, again, of just filtering it via the airbrush. So you going back with the Dunkelgelb and just lightly spraying over. Now that doesn't work very well with the brown when you do this, because the brown's too dark and the yellow's too light. So you see speckling. Works very well with the green. So then I've gone back over with the brown freehand again, just to cut out some of the over the top dusty looking deposits, if you like. But it works very well with that green. If you're doing a green and dark yellow scheme, then going back over with the dark yellow is just perfect. That green's just the right tone for it not to show up. But the dark brown there, is a little bit too much of a strong colour for this to work effectively. So you might go down the route of maybe what would have been better was using an oil filter or a wash. But I do like a filter in this instance because I haven't faded the paint. So because the paint's so strong, I'm trying to fade it down to the dark yellow, if that makes sense. That's the reason for a filter. You don't always need one. There you go, tracks on, sprayed up rubber black, easy stuff, just sprayed up rubber black, glued on, just as you've seen in the build video. And now we're really getting on with things. As you can see, we're pretty much there as far as the basic paint being on. I'm reasonably happy. I think it looks pretty good. I was quite surprised at how nice it looked, actually, after working a little bit. And that's why some of these small vehicles can help, because this wasn't all-encompassing, this painting. You know, it was really quick and simple and over nicely and quickly. And that can be quite useful. Now, these flory sanding sticks, these are, I don't know what he calls them, but they're basically for sanding paint. That's the idea behind them. You know, he would say you can't go through the layers. You do sometimes. You can go too much. But it's a nice kind of soft, velvety sander. And on the back, it's got a polisher. And this is where you get into it. I used to do this with aircraft. I've kind of gone away with it, but I'm coming back to it now. It's try and rub things down, buff things a little bit, try and sand the layers. You can actually go from a gloss down to a semi-matte finish with this, the way you would sand it, or you can buff a matte surface up to a polished surface. So they're nice little sticks, and they can give you a bit of texture, I guess. I mean, texture to look at, texture for the eyes, if that's such a thing. People talk about it in the mini painting world. They don't really mean a visible texture that you'd feel with your finger sort of thing. They mean I'm not talking about like rough cast texture. I'm talking about depth, I suppose, of the paint surface and an interesting kind of way that it looks. So now we've gone straight on with the enamel dark wash from Ammo. all I've done here is actually put a pin wash on and then wipe it back. Now you can't really see too much, but if you had this side by side with what we had before, you would see the difference. Pin wash is where it really lifts. So once I've done the pin wash, I decided to start on the chipping. Now we're going to be coming back to this in a specific video, looking at the differences between sponge chipping, brush chipping, hairspray chipping. But at the minute, I just thought I'd go round with some sponge chipping using Mechanicus Grey. This is from Citadel. A nice grey colour, but it wasn't the right colour. I've since gone on and got the Vallejo Panzer. I forget what it is now. Dark. It's one of the Panzer colours. It's a dark brown. It's the one most people use for chipping. And I've got the ammo chipping acrylic colour as well. And they do work a lot better, I've got to be honest. Certainly for the German grey. But it's the same old thing, barely any paint on this sponge, just dabbing around here and there until it looks right, really, until it looks like it's not too much. You don't want it to look too much. It wants to just look right. Now here you can see crew quarters. I'm thinking about getting in and out, hobnail boots and all of that. It's over the top, it's stylised, but I think it fits. It's not too much, it's in the ballpark, and we just continue this on round. Now, chipping is not always just one colour. You know, the way you then go up with it is actually bring in different colours, and if you don't like it, you can go over it. See, I'm not very happy with all of that there on the fender, and we do go through and refine this. So the sponge chipping I've just used to just get a bit down, get it done, you know, and then we go back with the brush. We start picking out areas, as you can see here. Just picking out areas where paint is going to chip. Now, of course, you know, if this vehicle has got 3 months, 6 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever, chipping's going to vary. But that's not what this is about. You know, we're just trying to have a bit of fun with this one. And it's a test piece. And it's why I did this. I wanted to bring up the final result and try and add a bit more than I usually do. And I'm reasonably happy. Now, I'm learning the process, so by all means, I'm not saying copy me here. I'm just saying try some of these techniques, see what works for you. I'm just using old techniques. I've gone through the old Tony Greenland book. I think I mentioned on the channel, I read it front to back last year before I did the beginner series. I thought it was important just to get an idea of, you know, the older school of things. I've been looking at the Shet Payne book, looking through some of my old Tamiya Model Magazine Internationals, which is my favourite go-to old reference, classic stuff in there, and just kind of getting an idea of what people were doing then, and trying to use that, looking at a few other techniques of what guys are doing these days as well. You see a lot online, there's obviously plenty on YouTube, and just trying to find something that works for me. And here you can see you're starting to build up. This is what I would class as that texture. You see on the camouflage here, so on the rear deck, there's a few scratches and things like that. So I don't mean there's a rough texture, I mean there's a texture to the look of it. Maybe I need some new terminology. So I've used this Tamiya dark yellow to cut back through that. So I'm trying to think about scuffing through the camo paint, if you think of that, going back to the base coat. And the finer the line you can make, the finer the mark, the better. Now, as you can see, my paintbrush had dried up a little bit there, but it's no problem. Just take your time, and it's better to do this 3 or 4 times and nothing come off than go on and put one big splodge on. There you go, you can see it's just a bit too much there. Once I got my eye in, I start getting the kind of amount that I want, and you can get rid of this using that old sander that I said, the Flory sander and stuff. You know, if it's not right when it's dry, just go over it a little bit and it will come straight off. Don't do it when it's wet, it doesn't work then, but it soon dry off, especially if you've got a hairdryer around as well. You can make it all dry much quicker. And then it's just a case now of going around and picking off some corners and some areas and just building up that chipping. Now, this is something you won't have seen from me like this on the channel. I must admit, after doing this, I was so impressed with how it looked, and it wasn't about how this model looks. It was impressed at the fact of what can be done with this going forward, that this is now a feature You know, it now goes from paint to chipping. And I must admit, a lot of people have always mentioned it. I just didn't get it. I just thought, no, I don't like models being chipped, but there's something to be said for it, for sure. I'm a convert. There you go. I'm in. Now this does border on too much. I think this would have. This would fit if you say thought of something like I don't know, a Panzer III that's gone into Barbarossa and is still kicking around in the summer of 42, for instance. That's the sort of time you're going to see this kind of wear. You probably see it in North Africa as well, where there looks like on the German stuff the initial painting of the stuff that turned up, where they've done a wash over the German grey, seems to come off quite quickly, and there seems to be quite a lot of chipping as well. If you want to try and get realistic, just look at some reference pictures. You've got to find some real high resolution ones, but you will see it's there. There's always this like heavy build up of patina or chipping on where the crew go. So it's a nice thing to add, and I'm leaving you with the process just to show you that how much you can add. You know, I'm looking at each thing in a section, so I'm sort of taking this back piece here as a small rectangle and just working on that and not worrying about anything else, and then moving through the vehicle in different sections using the way that the vehicle's actually built, focusing on those areas. And with that, you can work in small areas. Now, this is a good thing as well. Just hitting those high bolts with the Dunkelgelb can work really well. So now it's time to start building up that running gear. And because this is a city fighting vehicle, we're thinking rubble dust, all that sort of thing. So it's just building up the layers there behind the running gear with a heavy oil wash. Various colours. Don't worry about what the colours are. I think people get too worried, and what did you paint that with? What colour did you use? Just get somewhere near it. It's browns. There's maybe a bit of Payne's grey mixed in there, that sort of thing. I want to encourage you to find your own way with it, rather than me say, you need to use this, and this colour, and you need to mix it like this. It's not. I don't think that's helpful. Don't think it gets anyone anywhere, really. And now applying that wash in and around the tracks, up around the running gear. You can just see what I'm doing. First off, the wash goes on quite heavy like that. It's quite nice to you don't get to paint things like this, just slap it on, but there's more to it. I'm just slapping it on to get it there, and then we're starting to work at it with the brush to kind of bring up some of the, I'm going to use that word again, the texture that we want in there, tell the story that we want to tell, make it look like what we want it to look like, and just build it up. And of course, now I take that up the sides, up the back, bring it round to the upper hole. Not too much, but I am sort of thinking about that. And there you can see, look, it's easy enough, just sort of dabbing around. That's what you end up with. Starting to get a wash where it's drying on the track run as well. It's starting to look right, and you'll see it. It will click. It will start to work when you bring it up round the sides, bring it up round the tracks. You'll start to think, okay, this is looking what we want it to look like. Once you're there, don't be scared to stop. If you think, right, that's what I want it to look like, that's brilliant. Leave it there. If it needs a bit more, give it a bit more. I've kicked it up the front there a little bit. You see, it's just looking nice. And, that was an important place to leave it. Now, with a lighter colour, I've just gone around and I want to put some staining in on just areas of the track, like, it's picked up bits and pieces as you go through. Not the whole track this colour, because as it dries, you'll see that difference through the track. And that's always a good thing in models. You don't want everything to look the same. It brings interest. Just carry that on through the track run, let it dry off. It looks how you want it to look. That's great. If you don't, hit it back with thinners again and change it up a little bit. Now just going on up right through the fenders as well, trying to give those same sort of deposits as though it's kicked up and landed on the fender. And now working on the road wheels as well, and it's trying to bring it in. You'll start to see that the road wheels would have looked clean. Now they look like they're part of it, and it's just trying to bring everything to the same level. And when it looks right, you'll know it's right, and you can leave it there. And that's what we're starting to do now. We're really getting on with things. It's starting to come through to how I want it to look. Now you may have noticed that there's not a huge amount gone on up the on the top deck. It was basically a pin wash and chipping. I think I've gone back over with a couple of oil washes, but that's really it. And that's all it needs sometimes. With Europe Earth from MIG, we've got just a bit of pigment. Now this isn't chuck it all on like I used to. This is just place it again in areas to give a bit of depth, and it's putting it just in areas along the tracks. I've also picked out the silver there on the high points, the polished silver. That is Mr. Colour 8, which is my go-to. Very nice polished silver look. And there you can see with a bit of the pigments gone on, I now brush that off a little bit and go on with the airbrush and just hit it just a couple times off camera. And you see this brush down in the right hand corner. That's what I've used just to scrunch it into areas, you know, used it to grind it in. And there we go, you see, gone through some rubbly dust. You've got some dry bits, you've got some wet bits, and it, I think I was really happy with it, and it served its purpose. So that's brought this build to a close. I'm going to leave you some pictures now. So as always, thanks for staying tuned. This is continuing on our progress with the Beginner's Guide to Armour Modelling, which is a playlist that this video is part of. You can save it, find it on the channel, follow along, and I'd encourage you to as we're going forward. So thanks for staying tuned. Let me know your comments down below. As always, thanks for supporting the channel. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing and liking the video, and I'll see you in the next one.